According to the National Electrical Code, specifically Section 680.42 from the 2002 edition, when wiring a subpanel in a garage to supply power to both an outdoor hot tub and receptacles, you have options regarding the wiring method. The key is understanding the restrictions and allowances within the code. Section 680.42 addresses wiring methods specifically for spas and hot tubs. This section, however, has exclusions, meaning that certain wiring methods are not permitted under specific conditions. In this particular case, 680.42 excludes two specific methods: Method A, which pertains to Type NM, non-metallic cable, and Method B, which refers to Type UF, underground feeder cable. Because these two methods are excluded from 680.42, they cannot be used to connect the subpanel to the hot tub directly. However, the question also involves installing a subpanel in the garage to feed both the hot tub and receptacles. This is where Section 680.25, found in Part Roman 2 of Article 680, becomes relevant. Section 680.25 provides guidelines for feeders to pools, spas, and hot tubs. Specifically, it permits the use of SER cable, which stands for Service Entrance Rating Cable, for wiring subpanels in garages. Therefore, the takeaway is that you have a choice between using SER cable or conduit to wire the subpanel that will feed both the hot tub and the receptacles. Let's delve a little deeper into each option and its implications. Firstly, consider using SER cable. SER cable is a type of cable that is typically used for service entrance wiring, meaning it connects the utility company's service drop to the main panel of a building. It consists of multiple conductors, including insulated phase conductors and a bare neutral conductor, all wrapped within a flame retardant covering. When using SER cable, it's crucial to adhere to the National Electrical Code regulations for its installation. This includes using appropriate connectors and supports, ensuring proper grounding and bonding, and protecting the cable from physical damage. It is worth noting that SER cable is typically less expensive and easier to install than conduit, making it an attractive option for many installations. Secondly, let's talk about using conduit. Conduit refers to a raceway system consisting of rigid or flexible metal or non-metallic tubing designed to protect electrical conductors. There are several types of conduit available, including rigid metal conduit, intermediate metal conduit, electrical metallic tubing, flexible metal conduit, and PVC conduit. Each type of conduit has its own set of advantages and disadvantages in terms of cost, installation complexity, and protection against physical damage and environmental factors. When using conduit, it is important to select the appropriate type for the application and to install it correctly, following all applicable code requirements. This includes using appropriate fittings, supports, and grounding methods. Conduit provides superior protection for electrical conductors compared to SER cable, making it a popular choice for installations where physical damage or environmental factors are a concern. Now let's address some additional considerations when wiring a hot tub subpanel. One important consideration is the size of the subpanel. The subpanel must be sized appropriately to handle the load of both the hot tub and the receptacles. This requires calculating the total amperage draw of all the devices that will be connected to the subpanel and selecting a subpanel with a sufficient ampacity rating. Another important consideration is grounding and bonding. Proper grounding and bonding are essential for electrical safety and to prevent electric shock hazards. The subpanel, the hot tub, and all metal parts in the vicinity of the hot tub must be properly grounded and bonded together in accordance with the National Electrical Code. This typically involves running a grounding electrode conductor from the subpanel to a grounding electrode, such as a ground rod or a metal water pipe. In addition, all metal parts, such as the hot tub's metal frame and any metal piping, must be bonded together with the bonding conductor. Furthermore, ground fault circuit interrupter protection, or GFCI protection, is required for all receptacles that are installed within a certain distance of the hot tub. This is to protect people from electric shock hazards in wet environments. GFCI protection can be provided by installing GFCI circuit breakers in the subpanel or by installing GFCI receptacles at each outlet location. It's also essential to consider the location of the subpanel. The subpanel should be located in a readily accessible location and should not be installed in a damp or wet environment. If the subpanel is installed outdoors, it must be enclosed in a weatherproof enclosure. The subpanel should also be located as close as possible to the hot tub to minimize voltage drop and ensure adequate power delivery. When planning the wiring layout, consider the placement of the receptacles. Receptacles should be located in convenient locations around the garage, but they should not be installed too close to the hot tub, as this could create a safety hazard. The National Electrical Code specifies minimum distances for receptacles from spas and hot tubs. In addition to the National Electrical Code requirements, it's also important to comply with any local codes or regulations that may apply. Local codes may have additional requirements or restrictions for wiring hot tubs and subpanels. It's a good idea to check with the local building department to ensure that your installation complies with all applicable codes and regulations. Remember to always disconnect power to the circuit before working on any electrical wiring. This is to prevent electric shock hazards. Use appropriate safety equipment, such as insulated tools and rubber gloves, when working on electrical wiring. If you are not comfortable working on electrical wiring, it's best to hire a qualified electrician to do the work for you. Working with electricity can be dangerous, and it's important to take all necessary precautions to ensure your safety. In summary, when wiring a subpanel in a garage to feed an outdoor hot tub and receptacles, you have the option of using either SCR cable or conduit, as long as you comply with all applicable code requirements and safety precautions. Make sure to size the subpanel appropriately, provide proper grounding and bonding, install GFCI protection for receptacles near the hot tub, and comply with all local codes and regulations. The choice between SCR cable and conduit often depends on factors such as cost, ease of installation, and the level of protection required for the conductors. SCR cable is generally more cost-effective and easier to install, while conduit provides superior protection against physical damage and environmental factors. When making your decision, consider the specific requirements of your installation and the environment in which the wiring will be installed. If the wiring will be exposed to physical damage or harsh environmental conditions, conduit may be the better choice. If cost is a major concern and the wiring will be protected from damage, SCR cable may be a more suitable option. Ultimately, the best approach is to consult with a qualified electrician who can assess your specific needs and recommend the most appropriate wiring method for your situation. An experienced electrician can ensure that the installation complies with all applicable codes and regulations and that it is done safely and correctly. Remember that electrical work can be dangerous, and it is always best to err on the side of caution and seek professional assistance when needed. The National Electrical Code is a comprehensive set of standards that govern the safe installation of electrical wiring and equipment. It is updated every 3 years to reflect the latest advances in technology and safety practices. It is important to stay up to date on the latest code requirements to ensure that your electrical installations are safe and compliant. The National Electrical Code is available for purchase from the National Fire Protection Association, or NFPA, and it is also available for review at many public libraries and building departments. In addition to the National Electrical Code, there are also many other resources available to help you learn about electrical wiring and safety. These resources include textbooks, online courses, and training programs. If you are interested in learning more about electrical wiring, consider taking a course or attending a training program. These programs can provide you with the knowledge and skills you need to safely and effectively work with electrical wiring. Electrical safety is paramount, and it is important to take all necessary precautions to prevent electric shock hazards. Always disconnect power to the circuit before working on any electrical wiring, and use appropriate safety equipment such as insulated tools and rubber gloves. If you are not comfortable working on electrical wiring, it is best to hire a qualified electrician to do the work for you. By following these safety precautions, you can minimize the risk of electric shock and ensure that your electrical installations are safe and compliant. In conclusion, wiring a hot tub subpanel in a garage requires careful planning and attention to detail. You have the option of using either SCR cable or conduit, as long as you comply with all applicable code requirements and safety precautions. Make sure to size the subpanel appropriately, provide proper grounding and bonding, install GFCI protection for receptacles near the hot tub, and comply with all local codes and regulations. Consult with a qualified electrician if you have any questions or concerns, and always prioritize safety when working with electricity. By following these guidelines, you can ensure that your hot tub subpanel is wired safely and correctly, providing you with years of enjoyment. When deciding between SCR cable and conduit for your hot tub subpanel wiring, there are several factors to consider. Let's break down some of the key considerations to help you make the right choice. Firstly, consider the environment. Where will the wiring be located? Will it be exposed to moisture, chemicals, or physical damage? If the answer is yes to any of these, conduit is generally the better option. Conduit provides a robust protective layer, safeguarding the wires from external elements. Secondly, think about the budget. SCR cable is typically less expensive than conduit, both in terms of materials and labor. If you are on a tight budget, SCR cable may be a more attractive option. Thirdly, consider the ease of installation. SCR cable is generally easier to install than conduit, especially in tight spaces. It is more flexible and can be bent and routed more easily. Conduit, on the other hand, requires more precise measurements and cutting, and it can be more challenging to install in confined areas. Fourthly, think about aesthetics. Conduit can be more visually appealing than SCR cable, especially if it is installed neatly and professionally. However, it can also be more obtrusive, especially if it is installed on the surface of walls or ceilings. SCR cable can be concealed more easily, but it may not be as visually appealing. Fifthly, consider future modifications. If you anticipate needing to make changes to the wiring in the future, conduit may be a better option. It is easier to add or remove wires from conduit than it is from SCR cable. Sixthly, think about the type of hot tub. Some hot tubs require specific wiring methods, so be sure to consult the manufacturer's instructions before making your decision. Seventhly, consider local codes. Local codes may have specific requirements for hot tub wiring, so be sure to check with your local building department before starting your project. Eighthly, think about the size of the wires. The size of the wires will depend on the amperage draw of the hot tub and the receptacles. Be sure to use the correct size wires for the load to prevent overheating and fire hazards. Ninthly, consider the length of the run. The length of the run will affect the voltage drop in the wires. Be sure to calculate the voltage drop to ensure that the hot tub and receptacles receive adequate power. Tenthly, think about the grounding. Proper grounding is essential for safety. Be sure to ground the subpanel, the hot tub, and all metal parts in the vicinity of the hot tub. 11thly, consider the bonding. Bonding is also important for safety. Be sure to bond all metal parts together to create a low impedance path for fault currents. 12thly, think about the overcurrent protection. Overcurrent protection is required to protect the wires from overheating and fire hazards. Be sure to install circuit breakers or fuses of the correct size. 13thly, consider the GFCI protection. GFCI protection is required for all receptacles that are installed within a certain distance of the hot tub. 14thly, think about the disconnecting means. A disconnecting means is required to disconnect power to the hot tub for maintenance and repairs. 15thly, consider the working space. Adequate working space is required around the subpanel and the disconnecting means. 16thly, think about the accessibility. The subpanel and the disconnecting means should be readily accessible for inspection and maintenance. 17thly, consider the labeling. The subpanel and the disconnecting means should be properly labeled to identify their purpose. 18thly, think about the workmanship. The wiring should be installed neatly and professionally. 19thly, consider the inspection. The wiring should be inspected by a qualified electrical inspector to ensure that it complies with all applicable codes and regulations. 20thly, think about the documentation. Keep accurate records of the wiring installation, including the wiring diagram, the materials used, and the inspection report. When making your decision between SCR cable and conduit, weigh the pros and cons of each option carefully. Consider the environment, the budget, the ease of installation, the aesthetics, the future modifications, the type of hot tub, the local codes, the size of the wires, the length of the run, the grounding, the bonding, the overcurrent protection, the GFCI protection, the disconnecting means, the working space, the accessibility, the labeling, the workmanship, the inspection, and the documentation. By considering all of these factors, you can make an informed decision that will ensure the safety and reliability of your hot tub wiring. Remember, safety is always the top priority. If you are not comfortable working with electricity, hire a qualified electrician to do the work for you. A qualified electrician can ensure that the wiring is installed safely and correctly, and that it complies with all applicable codes and regulations. By taking the time to plan and execute your hot tub wiring project carefully, you can enjoy your hot tub for many years to come. Also remember to always consult with a qualified electrician or electrical inspector to ensure that your wiring meets all applicable codes and safety standards. This will help to protect you, your family, and your property from electrical hazards. Furthermore, always use high-quality materials and components that are listed or certified by a recognized testing laboratory, such as Underwriters Laboratories or ETL Semco. This will ensure that the materials and components have been tested and meet safety standards. Finally, always follow the manufacturer's instructions when installing electrical equipment and wiring. This will help to ensure that the equipment is installed correctly and safely.